Hi again, welcome back. So this is about the third video that I'm doing, and this one I want to talk about the basic, the personality traits that seem to be common in people that develop the mind-body symptoms, or what we call TMS, tension myositis syndrome. Um, every single person I've ever met with mind-body stuff has these traits, okay? And maybe, this is another way for you to connect the dots, kind of like I fit, check in with yourself and I fit that model. And if you say no, just I'm going to offer maybe another way of looking at these traits, because that's kind of what I did. I discovered a couple of them later on that I could see were different versions of these common traits, okay? So the first one is perfectionism, right? Perfectionism is when we don't like making mistakes. We are perfectionism with ourselves, okay? Which can translate to perfectionism in the outer world. We expect other people maybe to be perfect as well, but mostly it's about ourselves. Even though our thoughts may be about the world, if we really look at ourselves, how do you feel when you make a mistake? And how do you feel, what's your response then? Which is even a bigger indication that you're a perfectionist. Perfectionists tend to be a little hard on themselves. They tend to beat themselves up a little bit, right, when they do make mistakes, which kind of moves into the second trait, which is self-pressure. Now, I can literally feel myself putting pressure on myself. It's a visceral feeling in the nervous system, in the body, and it's like a self-pushing. Sometimes I can feel like a kind of a self-rushing, like an energy that's like pushing myself, right? Self-pressure can be, kind of like a perfectionism, but kind of like a, why can't you do it? What's wrong with you? These kinds of things when we set very high standards for ourselves, and the only thing that's going to work for us that we can see is if we get that standard. All right, and so we have to watch for that, because that self-pressure can be translated into danger by the brain, right? Oh, she's pushing on herself. There must be something wrong, okay? So another trait would be people-pleasing. I know this is kind of a not such a great thing to admit to ourselves, but people-pleasing isn't necessarily fawning on people, although it can be. People-pleasing is usually worried about what people think about us, all right? And, and that has many levels to it, of course, but it's, if you say something and you'll get a funny look, and immediately you look back on yourself and contract because you worry that you said the wrong thing, okay? So people-pleasing is, we can worry about what our boss thinks about us, or our friends think about us, or whomever it is, relationships. That is another kind of way of being hard on ourselves, right? Worrying about what people think about us. And, this all comes from feeling unsafe, right? All of these traits come from feeling unsafe, which is really what the brain is feeling, unsafe, right? Now, it's interesting to note that these traits that I'm talking about, perfectionism and self-pressure and people pleasing or worrying what people think about us, constantly, wanting to get it all just perfect and right. These are values that our society places value on. These are traits that our society places value on, which is kind of indicative of how unbalanced our society is, right? It's based on achievement. And if we're not meeting an achievement, we're going to put pressure on ourselves and we're going to be under stress. And that's an unsafe feeling for the brain. And this is why we have an epidemic of chronic symptoms in our society. Let me just see here. And, there's also another trait that I want to talk about that is called the caregiver. The caregiver is, for me, when I first heard it, I said, no, that's not me. I don't have that. And as I started to get to know myself better and look at things a little bit more objectively, I could see that, yes, it was true. I did have this trait, but it translated into the rescuer, okay? And the rescuer / caregiver is somebody that always wants to be of assistance, offer their, either their help, like help out, like never say no when somebody else helps ask you for help. I know several of those kinds of people, and then what happens is they'll always say yes because maybe they think they should, or it gives their ego something to feel safe doing. But what happens is they turn into resentment later on because that caregiving doesn't give them the satisfaction that their ego thought it was going to give them, right? And so the poor caregiver that keeps saying yes, 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 yes to everybody that asks them for help will slowly become resentful, right? And they're resentful to others, and they don't know how to say no. They haven't learned how to set boundaries. The rescuer is somebody similar. The rescuer thinks that they know something that can help other people, right? Let me help you. I know what I can, and you see this all the time, like on social media, when somebody is sharing that they have a problem and everybody runs to the rescue, right? And this is a classic trait, rescuer. And, this isn't a harmful trait, self-harm, but what it can lead to is it can lead to a loss of boundary. And, boundaries are super important for mind-body recovery. And, this is kind of merging into the next video a little bit, but if we don't have boundaries and we keep saying yes, we lose ourselves. We lose the ability to check in with ourselves and be aware of our own needs and our own inner world that is asking for help. And that's where we need to go for recovery. Okay, not out there. Out there is what the ego thinks it needs to do. Inside, there's no promise of outer security, but real security and safety have to happen on the inside, which is also part of recovery. And so these are all these little places of the traits that mind-body people can have. They're very common in people that have spiritual tendencies because we place a very high standard on ourselves, especially if we're very focused on the truth and bettering ourselves. We place a very high standard on ourselves, and perfectionism can creep in there without us recognizing it. All right. A fixation obsession is another trait. you know, that can happen in life, right? Let's say we have a business and all of a sudden things are going awry and we can't stop thinking about it, right? And this is a fixation obsession. Maybe we're in a relationship that isn't doing so well and we can't stop thinking about it. Fixation obsession. Now that can go outside. So we're looking outside. We're looking in the external world, and we obsess and we fixate and we obsess and we fixate. The brain's getting the message that there's a problem somewhere. Okay, that's because the focus is narrowing down, and this is what happens when we go into fight or flight. Is our awareness, our focus gets really narrow. Okay, fixation obsession, and so we're not aware of really the bigger picture, which we need to self-regulate. Okay, to lower the brain waves, slow them down, and return to that homeostasis baseline. Okay, fixation obsession can also happen with our symptoms, and this is really when things can go south with our symptoms. Is that fixating obsession? I know somebody that was very health anxiety, kind of always looking on the internet, look, what's wrong with this, what's wrong with this, what's wrong with this, and she just gradually, her health got worse because she was so fixated on her health, right? Because, I mean, real health is that homeostasis baseline we were talking about before, okay? And that's what we're going to use recovery for, to get back to, okay? Because that's, there's lots of different approaches, but really we want to get back down to that, where the deer are grazing in the grass after running away, that self-regulating homeostasis baseline. So this is it in a nutshell. Personality traits, classic personality traits of the mind-body TMSer person that we call ourselves, right? And and it's just something to start looking out for when we start recovering. We start looking out for these traits, and this is a really good thing. You'll start feeling better right away. Okay, all right. We will talk to you soon.